welcome to episode 11 of Shane Talks 99. Today, March 26th, 1999, and we've got another three-movie weekend in 1999. Got a kids movie, got a way ahead of its time reality TV movie, and then we have a perfect example of a teen action-adventure flick. So let's start off with Doug's first movie. I'm not really going to have a whole lot to say about this movie because I just wasn't age appropriate for it, but I was able to find it on Disney Plus this week, watched it for the first time ever. See, I skipped it back in 99 because, at 19, I had never watched Doug, the TV show before. I think I was just a little too old, already being in high school and stuff like that. So when the movie came out, I just really had no interest in it. So when I mentioned to my wife that I was going to be talking about this movie this week, she flipped out and she loves the movie. She grew up watching the TV show Doug. So again, I was just a few years outside of the demographic for this movie. So I watched it. It was fine. It was cute. Very nostalgic 2D animation that was coming to an end around that time, which I still enjoy. So it was very nostalgic for me. A little bit of trivia for this movie. According to the IMDb, this movie claims to be the last completely hand-drawn animated film there was. It had no CGI touch-ups or no computer editing or anything like that with it. It was all animated cells to make the movie, and it gives it a great feel. It's kind of animation that I grew up with, so I really enjoyed it. But I didn't know any of the characters, I didn't know any of the plot, I didn't know anything about it. It was fine. It was I don't know, since I never watched the show, I don't know what kind of topics the show dealt with, but this one, I don't know how realistic or set in reality the TV series was, but this one involved a sea monster that becomes friends with the kids, and then they have to protect this monster from corruption that's going on in the city. And it was kind of, it was fun for kids. I'm sure if I had been 12 when it came out, I probably would have loved the movie in ways that I love a lot of the stuff from the 80s that I grew up watching. Stuff like Secret of Nim or whatever. I don't know how well that still holds up today. But a couple of things that I did catch in the movie that I really enjoyed. I loved the fact that the nightclub in the movie was called Funky Town. Just let's go down to Funky Town. Always just popped into my head anytime somebody mentioned it. And then the fact that the lake that they try to get, the monster didn't come from this lake, but this is where they try to get the monster to go back to because it's next to Funky Town, was but Crystal Lake was the name of the other lake. So whether that was a nod to Friday the 13th or not, I really liked it and thought it was pretty cool. So despite being called Doug's first movie, this literally is how the franchise ended. They never made another Doug movie. They never made another episode of the TV show. So as far as the continuity with the TV show goes, this movie literally is the end of Doug. So didn't make me want to go watch the show, but like I said, it was a fine, cute movie. It's not bad in any way. Next movie we got to talk about is a movie called Ed TV. And Ed TV was so far ahead of its time. It doesn't even realize how realistic it is to the society and world that we live in nowadays. It was coming off of popular stuff like The Real World was huge in the 90s. And then in 98, the year before, we got the Jim Carrey movie, The Truman Show. So Ed TV, a lot of people compared the two movies, whereas The Truman Show, yes, was another guy on TV. He didn't know that he was an actor, on a television show. Whereas in Ed TV, the whole shtick of it is they pick a regular guy to just follow around. Literally what goes on platforms like Twitch these days. You've got these studio executives that are watching everything and trying to manipulate stuff, which I know goes on reality television. Watching reality television, about 25% of reality television is actually real. The rest of it is forced into existence or scripted into existence, or people are told what to say or do based on what's going to get ratings and stuff like that. So it's great to watch how ahead of the game Ed TV was as far as a movie goes. Obviously The Real World, behind the scenes people probably knew stuff and whatnot, but predicting how obsessed people were going to become about watching other people's lives on TV and how much drama, could create ratings and things like that. Like I think about the Kardashian shows and stuff like that people are obsessed with these days. Like a lot of it probably came around because EdTV, made light of the fact that, this is the way television, is scripted and made. Now we got a top-notch director, Opie himself, Ron Howard, directed this movie. It was written by a guy named Babalu Mandel and Lowell Grants, who aren't names that I'm very familiar with until I looked them up, and they've done Splash, Parenthood, City Slickers, A League of Their Own. Like, they did some pretty big hit movies. You got an amazing cast where Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson play brothers. Perfect casting, like two dudes that couldn't be more, fun to play siblings with each other. Jenna Elfman is in this movie. She starts off playing the girlfriend of Woody Harrelson's character, and then through television manipulation, she ends up in a relationship with Matthew McConaughey. I mean, they should have ended up together. She obviously had feelings for him before the whole TV stuff happened, but because people were watching the show and picking up on her, attraction to Matthew McConaughey, it happens. So she was just coming off of, she was getting ready to start her career going off, because in 97 she did Grosse Pointe Blank, and in 98 she did Can't Hardly Wait, and then in this movie, in 99, she's on a great path. Keeping the Faith, I believe, was her movie in 2000 with Ed Norton. So she's got a lot of hits that come out back to back to back over these 4 years. Elizabeth Hurley is also in this flick. We talked about her a couple of weeks ago on the My Favorite Martian episode. She's back, another potential love interest. She's tried, her character is forced into attempting to have a relationship with Matthew McConaughey throughout the course of the movie. And one last time in 99, we're going to talk about her when she has a small cameo in the Austin Powers sequel. There's a great supporting cast in this movie. Ellen DeGeneres is in it, Rob Reiner, Martin Landau. They're all phenomenal in their roles. Ellen and Rob Reiner are TV executives, and just watching Ellen create a conscience over what they're doing and Rob Reiner never having one. It's very fun to watch their dynamic in their scenes together. Our final film this week is The Mod Squad. This is something that was going on in the 90s. They were taking a lot of old television shows, trying to bring them back, trying to update them, and trying to turn them into movies instead of TV shows again, but they were turning them into movies. 1998's The Avengers comes to mind. There's a certain level of suspension of disbelief that goes with The Mod Squad, and if you can reach that point of suspension of disbelief, it's a really enjoyable flick. You got three troublemakers who get arrested, and they end up having to work for this rogue undercover secret group of cops. They want to use these kids to get them undercover in places that they can't get into because they're obviously older and they're cops, and so they want to use these three undercover kids because they've got rap sheets and they're believable in the criminal element. So we've got an all-star cast for this. We start off with Omar Epps. He's fresh off of doing the opening death scene in Scream 2. In 1999, he has two more movies that we're going to talk about later this fall. He's got The Wood, and then he's got In Too Deep, which if you haven't seen In Too Deep, him and LL Cool J in that movie are spectacular. It's one of my favorites from this year. Also, Omar Epps is 1 year away from doing Love and Basketball. So just Omar Epps right at his prime, just all these great roles that he has in the late 90s, early 2000s. We've also got Phoebe's brother, Frank, from Friends. Giovanni Ribisi is back. A couple of weeks ago, we discussed his role in The Other Sister. Later this year, he is the narrator of The Virgin Suicides, which is another phenomenal film with a phenomenal cast. But as good as 99 is, those are three great flicks he was involved in 99. 2000 is really the year for Giovanni Ribisi. This is warming him up because he's got Boiler Room, phenomenal movie. Gone in 60 Seconds, so much fun. And The Gift, which was a pretty good psychological thriller that are all coming out in 2000. So, much like Omar Epps, Giovanni Ribisi is right in his prime of making great movies right now. Rounding out our cast, we have Claire Danes. She also did the movie called Broke Down Palace in 1999. So it's going to be fun to talk about that later. And then in the English version of Princess Mononoke, she does one of the American, voiceovers, dubs, or whatever you want to call it. Playing the love interest for her in this movie, for Claire Danes' character, is a very young Josh Brolin. He also does another movie in 1999. It's called Best Laid Plans. We'll get to talking about that in September. So yeah, really cool to see a very young Josh Brolin, like long before he was Thanos, but still very suave character, like dresses really nice in this movie, like top-notch pimp Josh Brolin in this movie. Got a bunch of actors that play cops in this movie that are all part of the, conspiracy that gets uncovered throughout the course of the movie. Dennis Farina, Richard Jenkins, Steve Harvey, Sam McMurray, and Michael Lerner are all cops that, are involved in the conspiracy that's going on. And then one cool thing that they do in this movie, Claire Danes, who plays Julie, she has an aunt in the film. Her aunt is played by Peggy Lipton, who was the original Julie on the television series. Also, Link, Omar Epps' character, he has a grandfather in the film who's played by Clarence Williams III, who was the original Link on the television show. I don't know why they didn't get the original third guy to be in the movie, but I couldn't find him listed in the cast. I couldn't find it on his IMDb that he was involved at all. So I don't know if he didn't want to be. He is still alive. He's 81 years old, so don't really know why in 1999 he wasn't interested in being a part of this reboot. Last thing I want to do, the director of the Mod Squad was a guy named Scott Silver, who has not directed another movie since 1999. However, since then he has written 3 really good films. He wrote 8 Mile a couple years later, which is awesome. One of my favorite movies. He also wrote the movie The Fighter, which was a very well done movie. And he recently wrote The Joker, the one that got all the awards. So while Scott Silver may never have directed again, he was involved with a couple of really, really good projects. Our next episode's coming at you a lot sooner than you're going to expect it to be, because for the first time in 1999, we had 2 Wednesday releases. So I think that's going to be like a Thursday episode next week. And then we'll do, the regular Saturday episode next. But March 31st of 1999 was a Wednesday. We had 2 releases, and they are epic releases. Next episode, I get to talk about 10 Things I Hate About You, one of my all-time favorite comedies that has, my big crush from the 90s was Julia Stiles, and I get to talk about her movie. It's also the same movie. I'm going to say this again next week on the episode. It's the movie that I love the fact that the Joker, Robin, and Mr. Universe all went to high school together. So 10 Things I Hate About You, amazing film. And do you know what also opened the exact same day as 10 Things I Hate About You? Is The Matrix. The Matrix, which changed sci-fi and visual cinematography forever. Like, unparalleled leap forward in sci-fi storytelling. And it's only going to hold that for a couple of weeks, because in May we're going to obviously get into Star Wars Episode 1. But the things The Matrix accomplished were groundbreaking at the time. And it was far more practical than what we're going to talk about when we get to The Phantom Menace. But I'm really excited for the next episode. It is 2 movies I absolutely love talking about, and I can't wait to get to it. So I will see you soon.